Hey, I think we're live now. Had a couple of technical glitches there, but that's kind of to be expected, I guess. Thank you everyone for joining me on this webinar, where we're going to be discussing some ways that we can prevent WordPress sites from getting hacked. I get calls all the time from people saying, hey, my site's not down, or I'm getting a notification in Google that my site might harm people's computers, or even my site has been removed from the Google search engine listings, and it's a big concern for a lot of people. If this is your business and you are fully and completely relying on this to make money or to build your dream or to get your message out there, whatever you are trying to accomplish, hackers can get in the way. And so I put together this little masterclass to talk about some ways that everyone can, even if you're not a technical person or a software engineer or a developer or whatever, there's a bunch of steps you can take that can really go a long way to protecting your website, your business, and everything from hackers. And so at this point, I think we should just kind of dive in. I'm going to go through 7 different strategies. Some are really easy. Some are going to take a little bit more time and planning, but don't worry quite so much about that. We'll just talk through it and figure it out. And you can always hit me up, afterwards, or connect with me on Facebook or my website or wherever, and we can talk through some strategies to help protect you and your business. So I'm going to switch over to this slide deck that I've prepared. So give me just a second here. All right. Okay, everyone should be able to see that now. So 7 smart strategies to kick WordPress hackers to the curb. Let's just talk really briefly about WordPress hackers and just kind of the landscape of WordPress today and everything here. So 30% of all websites on the internet, I mean, this fluctuates a bit, but 30% of all websites on the internet are WordPress. That is huge. There are so many websites that use WordPress, and a large portion of that is due to just what WordPress is. It's really approachable for people. You don't have to be super technical to spin up a WordPress site. There's a lot of web hosts out there that will even allow you to install WordPress with just a single click, and then you have all of the functionality behind it. Another reason it's so popular, it was one of the really first kind of universal things 10 or so years ago that people could use to publish a message. And it has been used for that. So many large websites use WordPress. A couple of other things here. There's 55,000 plugins, which is very appealing to a lot of people that maybe aren't a developer or something. They need a functionality. They can go search through 55,000 different plugins and find something that probably fits their needs or really close. Additionally, there are tens of thousands of themes out there, some free, some paid, but it allows people to kind of puzzle piece together a website or a property that fits what their vision is to promote their message or run their business. But WordPress is kind of its own worst enemy because it's so big and used by so many people out there. It's a really massive target for hackers and other attackers. It just makes it really easy for people who have some technical skill to write some sort of script or something and just go find 1,000 or 10,000 websites that maybe might be vulnerable pretty easily without a lot of effort. which is why it's a little scary out there. Another reason WordPress is kind of a big target is it got a little bit too popular too fast. It grew so fast, but they also made some decisions to kind of support old versions of WordPress. And as you can see on some of my points here, some old versions of PHP, which is the programming language that WordPress is written in. And because of that, they're having to support an environment that sometimes is 10 plus years old, which by itself introduces some vulnerabilities. And then the other point I wanted to point out here on this slide deck is some people have even said that it's a little bit too easy to use. And so you get people using WordPress that maybe don't have a ton of knowledge surrounding security or other things like that. And so maybe their security or their updates or whatever kind of fall behind a little bit because it's not on the forefront of their mind. That's one reason why it was so popular, but also a little bit of a drawback when we're talking about security. But don't worry too much about that because there's some things that we can do to help prevent that, even if you're not a super technical person. So here's a couple of scary statistics that I drummed up. About 70% of all WordPress websites are vulnerable to some sort of known hack or problem. That means that someone could take down their website or make their website do what they wanted it to do in probably a matter of minutes if your site was caught their attention or something. And that's a little bit of a scary thought here. So that means of the people here on this call, on this masterclass, a little bit over 2/3 probably have some sort of vulnerability on their website. And another thing, 83% of all hacked sites using frameworks in 2017 were WordPress. That is an insane number. And it's a little bit scary to think about that. The number 2 website framework that was hacked was a website called framework called Joomla, and it came in at about 13%. So you can see there's a huge difference between number 1 and number 2 as far as which sites are most hacked out there. And a large portion of that has to do with just how popular WordPress is. Moving on here just a little bit. So you might think, okay, well, what's the worst that could happen? Here's an example. I photoshopped this in here. I don't want everyone to think that this website has a virus, but yeah, I just photoshopped this in here. But this is what it looks like in the search results if someone is searching for your site and you have a virus or something, or some hackers have installed some code on your site without your knowledge. Google and other search engines have started to test websites, and if they see an issue, they're going to put this warning on the search results so that they can help protect users. The other thing that happens is you can get blacklisted from the search results altogether if you don't fix this problem. And if you're a business that relies a lot on search engine results and other things like that, your traffic would diminish massively. Not only that, a lot of your visitors could get some sort of virus or something installed on your computer. And I know that's not what anybody wants to have happen to their visitors or their clients or their customer base. In addition to that, some web browsers will post a message like this when you try to go to a site that's been hacked or affected. And this is a super scary warning as well. It makes people very hesitant to continue to do business with a company if they see this. And so there definitely needs to be some damage control if something like this happens, to message out to your users that there was an issue and you've resolved it or whatever, right? But we're going to go on and talk about some ways that you can prevent this from even happening. Some of these might be things you're aware of. I'll bet there's going to be a few surprises in here, things that you may not be aware of. But either way, we want to protect you, your business, and your clients, customers, visitors, audience. So now we're going to get into the 7 items, 7 strategies we have. So the first thing that we got to do, and this is very basic stuff, is to back that thing up. Back up everything on your website. That includes your WordPress code, that includes the images, the videos, that includes the database, and the database includes all of your posts and page text and copy and all of your pages, blog posts, everything. That's all in your database. So we need to back all of that up. And that can be intimidating. Luckily, there are some tools that can really help back up your WordPress website. There's quite a few out there. We really want to get the backup onto a different server, right? So if you keep all your backups and everything on the same server, and then a hacker gets through to your server, they can get rid of all your backups and everything, or even poison those backups with their hacks. So even if you restore an old backup, you're still not, you still have the vulnerability and the hack installed. The other thing is you'll really want to automate your backups. Everybody has the best of intentions when it comes to backups, but guess what? If we don't have it automated, it's not going to happen. We're not going to do it regularly. It's just not going to get done. And I'm just as guilty of that as anybody else is. And so we will want to do that. And then finally, we need to make sure we get everything. I know I talked about that, but we have to back up everything. So I really want to drive that point home, because if we don't have everything, restoring from a backup is not going to do us any bit of good. So here's a couple of plugins that can help with this. Now, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but some WordPress web hosts have a backup solution built into the hosting platform, and that is a fantastic way to back up your entire website. Not all have that, though. I'm going to talk about some that do down the road here a little bit later in this presentation, so bear with me. But a lot of them do. You'll have to check with yours to see. So here's a couple of backup plugins that will help. Backup Buddy is probably the best and the oldest. It is paid. Last I looked, it was a one-time fee, so it wasn't a monthly subscription. So and I can't remember exactly how much it was, but with it being a one-time fee, it ended up being pretty reasonable in my opinion. But the cool part about Backup Buddy is it helps you get your backup off onto a completely different server that the company that runs Backup Buddy owns, a secure server. So you don't have to worry about setting up some sort of offsite storage like Amazon S3, if you know what that is, or I've seen people back up their WordPress installs to Google Drive or Dropbox. And so you don't have to even worry about an integration with Backup Buddy. You just buy it, install it, and start backing it up. And then you get those backups onto an external site. Updraft Plus is a free option that will give you a lot of backup flexibility. It's a very full feature thing, but it is a little bit harder to use in a couple of areas, mainly getting it off site, a little bit more technical to set up. They do have a premium version. I don't really know what the difference is between the free and the premium, because whenever I've used Updraft Plus, I've just used the free version. So those are a couple of really good backup solutions that you can look into. All right, number 2, this one's so important. Uninstall all unnecessary plugins or themes. And let me step back and talk a little bit about why this is the case. So WordPress, one of the reasons it's so popular is you have all of these plugins. What did I say? 55,000 plugins. But those plugins are all developed by and created by, you know, they could have a company behind it, or it could just be a solo developer in their basement, or it could be somebody working on a final project for their programming class or something, and then they decided to continue using that plugin, maintain it. And And I'm not saying that a solo developer in their basement is a worse developer than someone that has a company backing it, or vice versa, or whatever. But the fact of the matter is you're putting your trust into some people you don't really know. And so every time WordPress, a vulnerability or something comes out, these plugin developers, it's their responsibility to go fix that in their code. And many of them, these free plugins especially, these people are doing it on the side for fun or for kicks, and it may not be a big priority for them to go in and fix that or update it. Or maybe they got a job or moved out of the country or got married or had some life circumstance, and they just don't think about that plugin anymore. And so if there's any plugins installed on your site that you aren't using, we need to get rid of them. And if there's any plugins that aren't vital, you should really consider getting rid of them as well. Because you're really only secure, as this last point here states, as your weakest link. And if you have a weak link plugin on there, you could be doing a lot of these other things and still have some issues down the road. All right. So here's just a quick little guide to getting rid of a plugin. And this is very basic. Some web hosts will give you what they call a staging environment or a test environment, which is basically a copy of your website that you can go ahead and run tests on, but your visitors aren't actually using, right? If you have that with your web host, definitely do these changes and things in there first to test everything out. If you don't, then you can just follow this process and kind of play it by ear. So step one would be to just disable the plugin, right? And then go through your website, do all of the things that a user would do. That means submitting a contact form or something, or maybe signing up for your newsletter, or anything kind of out of the ordinary, making a comment on your on a blog post, or viewing the gallery, or something along those lines. So test all of that stuff, and if there's no issues, then go ahead and delete that plugin. Because we've already talked about backups and getting good backups, if anything goes wrong, you already have a backup in place. So we can go ahead and restore from that backup. And that's why backups are so vital to this process. And then this can feel really intimidating. Feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, on Facebook, I have a couple of Facebook groups that I'm linked to that you can hit me up with questions, and I'll see what I can do to help you out. All right, so this one is, don't install plugins unless you actually know that, number one, you need it, and that, number two, it's built by some company or person or developer that is responsive, knows what they're doing and everything. And that's kind of hard to figure out a little bit. So I'm going to give you a couple of pointers to help kind of feel things through just a touch here. But the first thing I want to talk about is plugins aren't always needed for the features that you want. There's a ton of plugins out there that will help you do all sorts of things that you could probably just do by maybe grouping that functionality into maybe a single plugin that's really well supported. Let me give you a quick example of what I'm talking about. So if you go to WordPress's website right now, or log into your admin panel and search for a plugin that to install, say, the Facebook pixel or Google tracking code, they're very similar. You're going to see, I don't know, probably 20 or 30 different plugins to help you do that. And I promise you, it's basically just a copy and paste job. You don't necessarily need a specific plugin to do that. So what you can do is there is a plugin that allows you to, they call it inject code in the header or the footer of your website. And I'll have to link to it right now. I can't remember exactly what that plugin is called, but it's a very well supported plugin. It's also a very simple plugin, and simple means it's probably less prone to being attacked or hacked or something like that. But essentially, if you install that one plugin, then any sort of tracking codes you need to put on your website, you can just use that plugin, copy and paste the tracking code in there, and you're installed and ready to go. So that would work for installing, say, your Facebook pixel, Google Analytics, Google AdWords retargeting code. If your email automation provider uses tracking codes, I use drip.com, it does. You can go ahead and inject it through that one plugin. So now you don't need to try to find a plugin to do all of these different things. In addition, if you use, say, like a light box or a pop-up box to get newsletter subscribers, a lot of times that code can just be copied and pasted into the footer section of your website, and that'll be good to go. That's how MailChimp does it. And I think basically every email platform that has a modal box functionality built in, that's basically how all of them do it. It's pretty straightforward. You can even, I installed recently Facebook Messenger on my website, and you could do Facebook Messenger as well through this single plugin. Instead of having 5 or 6 plugins, we've consolidated it down to one that's actively maintained and managed by a reputable company, right? So you're going to want to look at the development team. I have a download guide that I'm going to send out to everyone that has a couple of links and some ways you can do some research. But essentially, once you find a plugin that fits your needs, you're going to want to do a little research. For example, you do a Google search for the plugin name and then reviews. That's very high level. And then maybe the plugin name and developer, right? And then read up on that company a little bit. Maybe plugin name and vulnerabilities, do a search for that and see what you find. What you're really looking for is how quickly the developer responds to issues or concerns with the plugin. And if they're a reputable company, if it's installed by tens of thousands of people and has good reviews, that's a little bit better than something that's only been installed by maybe 50 people and has so-so reviews, right? So these are just kind of things to think about. Ultimately, though, you kind of got to just give it the gut feeling, just a touch on this, which is one of my points of rub with WordPress, to be honest. I don't like having to have this gut check a little bit when I'm installing something. I'd rather be able to know quite a bit more about it, but that's a little hard to do with WordPress, and it's really hard to do if you don't have a highly technical background like I do. So just kind of use best wisdom here a little bit. If you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to me. I'll point you in the right direction. All right, moving on to number 4 here. So this one, we want to do all of the other steps first before we kind of get to this point. I mean, updating WordPress is very, very important, but if you don't have a proper backup and you haven't removed any unused plugins, updates are a pain and can cause problems, which is why a lot of people running WordPress sites have kind of stopped doing the update process, because it's a very painful process. Automatic, the company behind WordPress, has put a lot into making this upgrade process more seamless and easier and more approachable. Even so, you want to make sure you have backups, and you want to make sure you're running a pretty thin installation as far as number of plugins goes. And then it's best if you can have both automatic updates and automatic backups in place. That way you can get these updates installed, but if something goes wrong, you have a backup and you can quickly restore that. And that's one of the things that, say, Backup Buddy can definitely help you with. And there's a lot lower chance of something going wrong with your automatic updates if you have fewer plugins, and plugins that are actively maintained by developers that have a good reputation within the WordPress community. All right, number 5, we're going to want to go ahead and install a virus scanner plugin. There's quite a few out there. I've actually read some articles of a few virus scanner plugins that had security vulnerabilities that allowed people to get viruses installed on their installation, which was quite ironic and funny to me. I'm not going to name any names, but I've tried quite a few, and frankly, my favorite is the Security Scanner. It's free. It's run by, it's backed by a team called Security. They're WordPress experts. We're going to talk about them a little bit later because they do provide some security services and cleanup services for people with WordPress installations. And they know their stuff, and they're definitely on top of the game. So that would be the one I'd recommend. It's a free installation. You just go and install it. You can set it up and have it, routinely scan your site for viruses. The reason this is so important is the trickier viruses out there. The people that write these viruses are not dumb. They're really smart. And so what they want to do is oftentimes they'll want to affect your website, but not let you know that it's infected. And so they will not let it, affect performance or things like that, but they'll maybe use it to gain access to, another system on the server, or randomly send out some, viruses to users of the site, but not not to everyone, right? And they get pretty tricky with how they do this. And so something like Security Scanner is going to scan and compare your core WordPress files with what Automatic, the company that runs WordPress, has, and see if there's been any modifications to those and some other things. So they can tell, even if your site isn't acting funny, they can help you find out if you have a problem on your site that you didn't know about. So definitely take the time to go ahead and install this one. Number 6. Now, I think this is a very important thing that a lot of people don't think about. A lot of people go with they try to find the cheapest hosting that they can go with. And oftentimes that's some sort of host that's maybe a couple of dollars a month, $2, $3, $4 a month, and it works. And they think, great, that's fantastic. I'm saving money. But the fact of the matter is if you are using this to run your business or to share your message, this is like skimping on the foundation of your house. You're definitely going to want to reevaluate who you're hosting with and probably sign up with a premium WordPress host. Now, a premium WordPress host is going to give you a few advantages. In the non-security area, it's going to give you advantages in speed. WordPress, by nature, is kind of a slower framework to run. But if you do certain tuning and tweaks to the server on the server level, you can get a lot more performance out of a WordPress website. Well, these premium hosts, they go ahead and they make sure that that's happening. They make sure their servers are tuned correctly. They make sure that they are using caching and turning on all these different settings that make WordPress really go fast. Whereas some of the budget ones, it's kind of hit or miss if that's going to be the case. But in addition to that, a premium WordPress host is going to give you automatic updates out of the box. They're going to help you get automatic backups out of the box. And a lot of them, the really good premium hosts, are going to have a security team in place that can even help you if something does go wrong. So you're getting protected on multiple sides. You're getting automatic updates, automatic backups, and you have a support team that you can contact and reach out to and say, hey, my website it says I've got a virus or something. And most of these premium hosts, wrapped into their hosting plan is a team of security experts, so that instead of having to necessarily pay a company to do clean your site for you or something, if it's a particularly nasty virus, you can just pay them, it's included in your hosting, and they will just go ahead and clean that up. Oftentimes they can restore a backup that's not been infected in a matter of minutes, and then see what may have gone wrong, and then patch whatever caused the issue in the first place. So it turns a really bad day into a not quite so bad day if you have a good premium WordPress host on your side. Now, I've heard people say things like, gosh, it's just a lot more money. I mean, to sign up with this WordPress premium host, it'd be probably $35 a month as opposed to the $3.95 that I'm paying with my budget host. I can tell you that security experts charge a lot of money to do this kind of stuff, because it's pretty technical and pretty skilled. And for $35 a month to have a team of security experts on your side and to have a team with full support on your side is a drop in the bucket, and it will ultimately save you money and time in the long run. And frankly, it's less than most people's cell phone bills to get started. Now, as you scale and grow, your price of hosting is going to go up, but that's going to happen with any sort of host. Even those that advertise unlimited bandwidth and traffic, they all have a limit. You can't get unlimited for $4 a month for very long. Eventually, you'll cap that out and have to move somewhere else anyway. So definitely take a look into this. Let me back up here. One of my favorites is one called WP Engine, and I can give you a link down. I can send out a link to whoever needs it, but WP Engine has been doing this the longest time. There's quite a few different other premium hosts out there, and they all have different kind of pricing plans, and it's really hard to kind of determine which is the best fit for you or whatever. But I'll just tell you right now, you can't really go wrong with WP Engine. Their support is really helpful. They're very responsive, and you'll find it to be a really good experience. And so I'll send you out a link so you can look up them if you'd like. All right, and then finally, our point 7, and this is for people that really want to take their website security seriously. You'll want to sign up for a web security platform. Now, this may not be necessary for everyone, because it is a little bit more involved setup, and these companies that do this will help you set it up. So it won't be too hairy for you necessarily, but basically what a lot of these security platforms do is it's a third-party service that your traffic gets routed through before it gets to your WordPress site. So it acts like say a firewall or something, and they analyze that traffic to make sure that it's not someone trying to run a script to hack your site. And it really is, if you're very concerned about security, this is definitely something you'd want to do. It sounds pretty expensive, but again, they have a full support team and a lot of these. And so you're looking at $200 to $500 per year. Now, as your business grows, or you start teaching your message, you're getting donation or getting money coming in, or if you already have money coming in, I can tell you right now that a $200 to $500 investment per year to have this level of security is kind of a no-brainer. It's definitely something you should explore a little bit. It's an annual fee. It's probably less than homeowners insurance for most people out there. And it will help you protect your investment in time and everything that you've put into your business and your website. So definitely take a look at that. One of my favorites, we've heard this before, is Sucuri, S-U-C-U-R-I, and I'll include some links to that as well. We talked about them with their virus scanner plugin that they have that's free. Well, this is why Sucuri knows so much about WordPress. They have a full security suite that can help scan and route traffic before it gets to your site, and help you. And so this is their paid service that they have. Again, they're very responsive, very helpful, and you should definitely look into that if you're starting to scale and things. It's something that can save you a lot of headache down the road. All right, now I have a couple of bonuses. I wanted to be a cool 7-point list because that's what everybody's doing these days, these cool 7-point lists. But here's a bonus. This is kind of a no-brainer, but you need to use a difficult-to-guess admin name and password. It still happens even to this day when people use password 1234 as their password for something and admin as their username for something. Newer versions of WordPress don't allow you to use admin as your main account. Thankfully, they've made that change. But you should definitely make it something that's difficult to guess. I recommend using a password database. There's a ton of them out there. LastPass Dashlane. The one I use is called Safe in Cloud. And they'll sync between all your devices and everything. But definitely use something like that. That way you don't have to remember all of your passwords. I think my password database has over 700 passwords in it because I'm a tech nerd and I make everything difficult, I guess, for myself. But yeah, use a password database, and that'll definitely help you, in the long run for basically all of your logins anywhere. And then here's an extra special bonus. If you're watching this and you're thinking, gosh, that sounds like a whole lot of work, maybe consider using Squarespace. Now, I put here on this bullet point that it's never hacked. I'm sure everything's hackable, but Squarespace, I've been really impressed with it. I've used it for a few big projects. I still use it for certain small projects, even though I'm a software engineer and have a ton of background building websites and things. And I built hundreds of them over the years. Sometimes the right tool for the right job is something a lot simpler, and Squarespace is pretty impressive. So definitely give them a look. They have a free trial. You can just go to their website and sign up for a free trial or whatever. It can do nearly everything that WordPress can do. There are a few limitations, but you'll have a fantastic looking website and you'll get it up faster, and you don't have to worry about a lot of this headache because they have security teams that handle all of that as just part of your subscription with them. So yeah, that is really kind of the end of what I wanted to go over. And now I really wanted to make a lot of this approachable to most people. Here, I'm going to turn my camera back on. I want to make this this topic approachable. There's a ton of people using WordPress that aren't tech people, and that's the beauty of WordPress. You shouldn't have to be a tech nerd or have a computer science degree to put a website out there and start building your message. And so there's a ton of other stuff that could be done that's a lot more technical and things, but frankly, a lot of that stuff is already done for you if you're using a premium WordPress host. So you don't need to worry quite so much about a lot of the technical stuff if you follow this 7-step guide that I've got going on here for you. And yeah, so that was it. If you want to learn more about me, what I'm doing, you can just look me up at blakebuse.com. I have a Facebook group for anybody who's an entrepreneur called Fail Forward Entrepreneurs. And the main point of that is I want to work to demystify failure. I think fear of failure is kind of a big thing. I'm faced with it a lot. I've been in quite a few situations where I've been quite afraid I'm going to fail. I helped put on an event out at the for a previous company that I worked with on a cruise ship out in the middle of the ocean. We had basically everything that could go wrong with the technology did, and it was quite stressful. But I think fear is a stepping stone towards success, and failure is a stepping stone towards success. And so I want to just collaborate surrounding that subject. It's a brand new group. There's only a few members in it right now, and I'd love to get everyone on this in there so we can really start collaborating surrounding that subject. At that, thank you so much for joining me on, I didn't tell you this, but this is my first live masterclass I've ever taught, and I think it went all right. But thank you so much for joining me. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any further questions or anything. In the future, I'll do some live Q&A. That sounds like a lot of fun. I didn't really get everything quite set up to do that for this one, but we'll get there. All right. Thank you so much.